Hey, Dr. Contrast Live here. Just going to take a minute and hope you'll join us today. And if you do, a little bit of an insight here. I think a lot of times we get caught up, for example, on doing sketches and trying to finish them out and be really pretty with them and kind of cosmetically clean them all up and so forth. But I think I'm a big fan of going through some what I refer to as like gesture sketches or some benchmark or soldier studies based on looking for a certain theme. So I thought we'd go back a little bit in time and pick up some really stretched wheel-based patterns and some speed forms of the 30s and 40s and kind of bring them into the modern generation and maybe mix and match a little bit with some Streamliner studies. And those of you who joined us, for example, on Wednesday this week, we went into a lot of sketch rendering, so-called theme studies for the Audi GTR series, the TT series. A little bit more finished stuff, still kind of on the loose side, but sketch related in terms of putting some marker and pencil together. And today I just want to concentrate on hopefully showing you or describing how critical it is to not finish things and just go through a gesture or put down a thought or a bit of a concept or a theme study or a feature, and then go to the next study and just move on and develop a series of things that kind of you can pull from later on in the library and develop. So let's kind of get started here with just a nice little, just a series of nice little thumbnail sketches. By the way, I'm working with Prismacolor pencil, and again on the smooth newsprint this time. So we'll see what kind of results we get here. Just a nice little baseline down. A little bit of wheelbase in here, kind of scratch it in there. Notice I'm just kind of counting it all out, being very scratchy. Stretch the wheelbase a little bit. I'll bring this back and kind of tune it in a little bit more. Maybe add another half a wheel just to give me some length here to kind of stretch this thing, make it like a streamliner situation here. And get back on a nice little gesture. Just come right back to the top of that thing. Nothing really sweet. I'm just kind of drawing through it. Kind of, no, let's pull this in maybe a little bit more. And just kind of, let's kick that up and just get that going down here. Maybe a little bit of a contemporary big foil on this guy. There it is here. Just kind of extend that. Again, bring this in, just drop it off. A little blunter, a little bit of a foil in the front of this guy. And just kind of drop through these things. Just kind of bring that up in speed here. Notice just a little bit of line weight here. It's going to tone it in. Cockpit study. It's going to bring it back. Put a value change here. And again, nice and easy. Just kind of scratch in some surface. Real nice. Just kind of give it an empathic quality. Tone it in a little bit. Bring the ground line in. Drop the body surface just a bit so we get a little less ground clearance. Back in the wheel again. A little bit of a center. Just kind of accentuate where that cockpit is. There it is. And then that line drive right back. We'll just bring that big foil in place. Let's put a little intake scoop back here for rear engine. Kind of a nice little process. Notice, really interesting. Little mistake there. Cool. A little foil right there. We'll borrow something from the old Firebird generation out of GM. Kind of a neat deal to kind of go through here. So let's just kind of blunt this off. So that's our first real little pass here. A little bit more tone in this guy, just to kind of let him some secrets here. And there it is. A little more concept than this. Round line out. So we're looking at. Just really notice that, the character of that sketch. It's not complete unto itself. But hopefully there's an emotion in it that tells you, we're looking at some speed forms here, some shapes that begin to give us a streamlined characteristic. So let's kind of keep going here. Nice little loosies. I'm going to just pack the page here with a bunch of really what I call soldier studies. And the reason they're called soldier studies is because they're given a stance. Back in the 20s and 30s, for example, when Harley Earl was working through some of the GM stuff and some of the great Gene Bourdonnais at Ford Motor Company and some of the great design, Virgil Exner at Chrysler, they started looking at these side views or elevations and called them, they taglined them as soldier studies because they wanted to get some sort of a military or a formal feel at looking at the thing. No dress, no perspective. What does it look like in just a pure elevation? So that's where that term came from, a soldier study, just analyzing an elevation and looking at proportions, scale, etc., and so on. Let's kind of go back here, and our mission today is to really develop, as I said, a really good understanding, hopefully, from the perspective of don't finish a sketch. Just go through some roughies and get a theme down, or look for a feature, a line, or a shape, or something of that nature that kind of gives you some springboard to go further with the sketches. So let's kind of go on here. Take that right through. Count out the wheels. Really stretch the wheelbase here. Not being afraid to just squirrel right through it. Just a little more stretch. Looks good there. Looks good there. Let's come back in and put a little bit more theme to this thing. Let's go a little crisper. Let's got to put a wedge in this thing. Take that wedge and just bring it uphill. Draw that right through. Let's bring this through and just kind of stretch it. The overlap. Now let's get that guy. Bring this into play right here. Lose it. And put a real slow, low canopy on this thing. Man, look at that. Look at how that gesture just changed. Interesting how that just kind of fired through there, give me a whole different stance here. And again, going back in, maybe this is all nice and loose. This kind of comes in down the ground line here, and that's all we need. Got to put this into place. And Speedliners are great for just doing really big, huge bucket type wheel systems in this thing. Some open, some closed. A little bit of drop back into this guy, just a touch. Yeah, let's just draw through this thing. Let's take that right through. There's the actual spear. There it is. A little bit of tone up on top. Some more surface in through here. Take it right into the wheels. Tighten that down a bit. And there's another way. Let's kind of crispen up that line a little bit. Let's put a little bit of dovetail in this guy. There it is, right there. Again, notice how free and easy that shape is. It's just kind of neat in terms of laying down surface, looking for ideas, maybe this little sheer, little rounder in some areas here. Then we go back and let's do this. Got a ground line down again. Put some wheels in place. Lay that base. A little more of a stretch. Let's get this guy to come in here. Do that. Strengthen the ground line just a bit more, keep me even. Pull that rear wheel in place. And let's just get a real solid gesture all uphill. Let's turn that back. And now let's turn it on itself and just bring that right back in. Let's go a little bit larger with those rear wheels. Give them some gunch. There you are. That spring line there, let's take that on in. Let's kind of return this, put a little bit of the nose cone on it. Take that back down to ground. Let's kind of pooch this out a little bit more. Just kind of get that shape to just a little more vicious. There it is. That's that to that. That's that. And again, let's kind of pull this back and just kind of crispen that up. Put this in place. Get that ground line to set up. And let's pull the canopy rearward here. Let's see what that does. And just to get a little bit of airfoil effect, just carry that through. Let's get that triangle back there. That's a little bit of air flap. Now, come back into this. Let's find the center line. Let's open that wheel up just a bit, or close it down. Maybe it's got maybe a 3/4 pant on that thing. There it is, and that's where it ties into the actual form itself. Let's put that into place. Tire. Close wheel partially. Let's take that through. And for what it's worth, let's kind of bring this uphill just a little bit and break it. And again, tone that in. Real scratchy. Yeah, looking at just basic character. Streamliners. Get down to ground. Let's take a look at these guys just for a second. There's not a whole lot of variation in theme. We're just looking at some, hey, how you doing there, Pixel? Good to see you, man. It was so great to see you yesterday. It was really fun to visit your friend. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We had a great session there with the G12 conversation. Pixel, I'm really glad that we were able to join us. That's quite a spectacle, isn't it, in that garage? My goodness, it's incredible. So I just thought today, just bringing up to speed here, it was really interesting that we did that little GT Audi series on Wednesday, and kind of more of a, not a formal rendering, but a little crisper, a little bit more complete. And I thought we'd go back in today. And the message up to get across to the gang tuning in is let's look at our sketches just being not so much finished, maybe partial sketch here, a little bit of theme. The whole idea of Streamliners here is to get into a real stretch wheelbase and looking for an emotional form that just kind of tells a story, nothing really complete unto itself, just looking at elevations and certain studies that we can work with. And then later on, come back to it. Maybe I might come back to this subject matter on Monday and do a nice formal series of sketches on Streamliners and pick a few of the best shapes out here. But the message today is when you lay down a sketch, let it become a sketch. Don't worry about finishing it. Put an emotion into it. Give it some character that you're after. Little features like maybe this wedge behind the wheels, the intake piece, this snoot up top, this arrow flap at the back. Things like that make a huge difference when you put together some of the sketches. So I'm going to carry on here for just a moment. Let me just grab a fresh stick here. And maybe sometimes you just turn around and say, well, maybe it's kind of like this too. Maybe we do this. Put this in place. and put a nice little spring line in it, and bring that through, and bring that through, and just do this. Just enough of that, and get this in to just come up, drop through a little bit. Let's move that wheel blade just a little bit further forward. I want to move that just a bit. Let's get that through, take that on through, bring that up, bring that over. Again, put a little bit of a blister on this thing, a little blister on that, and then just take that right through. Again, a little canopy definition. A little leader line down through here, kind of break up the shape a bit. A lot of mass in that body side, but just a nice series of character sketches here to kind of get this through. Let's run that on in. Run that on in. A little bit of chin spoiler underneath this thing. A little bit of ground shadow to kind of set it up. Maybe turn this guy a little bit. Put a shadow down. Take it a little further. A little more stealth-like, a little crisper, with some of that little romantic fender blister over the top of that guy. And there's another approach to it as well. A little bit of perspective involved in that guy, but again, kind of a bit of a different flavor to it. So interesting. Oh, yeah, you like that shape? Ah, that's cool. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Let me just go back and sharpen this stick a little bit here. Let's go back again and just use a little bit of space here. Let's crank a few in here. Just really low profile stuff. Let's put a little thumbnail in here. Let's get that thing through. Get that in through. Let's see what happens here if we kind of come back with this and this. Let's take that same basic theme. Let's just stretch it a bit. A little bit of tone underneath this thing. Real quick sketches. I'm just looking for form, maybe some shadow and shape and so forth. Not a lot of definition. Just don't want to get caught up with a lot of sweetness here. Just going to put a little bit of cockpit in this thing, kind of low profile it and put it right in the middle of the vehicle. Not good to do, but nonetheless, this again, looking for shape. A little more hard line through here. Take a little bit of accent place. Let's take that break through it. There's a neat little mistake there. Notice how that shape kicks in, came down, and formed a pant, so to speak, underneath that shape. So those are the things we're looking for. Those little happy accidents, for example, that begin to tell you that some really neat stuff is beginning to take place. You can pull from those things and begin to develop the surface even more so. Go back and do a couple more down through here. Get those wheels down. Lay down that guy. Get a little bit of cockpit in here. Full rivered. A little bit of tone underneath this thing. Almost goes back to almost 50s and early 60s shape development, because that's when that stuff really began to become part of the whole fabric of motorsports. Now let's come back in here and just put a little of this in place. And the brake line there. A bit of a brake line there. I just want to fill the page with a nice series of just emotional what-if sketches for some speed forms. Let's put a little more impact in this thing. And let it go. And look how lucid that is. And it just kind of hopefully tells a story. Hey, let's see, Belton Black, how are you? Picking up the lines of the 2020 Supra. Pretty interesting machine, not bad at all. I think they've done some nice things with getting that form back into some competitive shape and so forth. Interesting set of circumstances. And I think they're going to go to another generation change there, Belton. That's going to make it a lot more dramatic. I think they're looking at maybe a Roadster variant or a GT version too, a GTR series. So that'll be kind of nice. I'm a big fan of what they're doing. So more power to them. And by the way, thank you for joining us here. I think you're a new visitor. I'm not quite sure if I've had the chance to meet you before, but thanks so much for joining us. And bring up to speed, we're going through just a series of, let me move these over a little bit so we can see them a little bit. We're just going through a series of exercises after I came out of Tuesday's stream, or pardon me, Wednesday's stream of this week. And we did a lot of GT stuff for Audi. Just some little, maybe a touch more formal rendering. But I wanted to take the time today to come back and just do some really quick what I refer to as emotional benchmark sketches. The reason I'm bringing that comment up is because oftentimes we try to do our sketches and they're complete unto themselves, and I think that's a huge mistake. I think a lot of times when I go through a series of exercises like this, I'm just looking for just basic form, a feature, an idea, a shape, or a line, and I think that's what I'm trying to get across today. It's always good to change tempo. Hey, Belton Black now following. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard, and again, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today. So the whole storyline is to get away from the habit of trying to be perfect. I mean, I've said this every stream I've been on. There's no such thing as being perfect whatsoever. But if you can perfect the discipline, that's another matter altogether. Now it's a lot of fun to be able to take these ideas and these shapes and begin to really develop your own vocabulary and your own signature with these sketches that we're doing. So let me carry on, but just let me sharpen this stick here for a second here. I'm going to take advantage of a couple little themes here. I just want to pack the page with a whole bunch of really goofy sketches that kind of tell a story. See what happens with this stuff. Big and small. I just got to get the wheels in place. Let's come back in through here, roll this over, roll that over, just get that counting, and really notice really stretching that wheelbase out quite a bit. Now let's go back and do it more traditional. Let's go to the old fender, the old floaters. There, that's to that. Then let's put the form in place and bring that forward, and let's go that to that. Let's get a nice old speed racer thing in here. And now just roll that off. Now again, and in between, dropping it off. Again, shape, almost elliptical, shape, again, a little bit of surface inside here, changing that shape and up on top here. No more peak, I'm in the way here. Yeah, you're good. Bring that down, more traditional, a little more traditional. And again, the canopy up on top here, let's kind of tighten that down a little bit. That's where the canopy might go. Let's take that back and then put a little bit of aero fin in this thing, just change the character. Really sound that out. Streamliners, great stuff. I did a whole series of watercolor studies for Mercedes-Benz and Mercedes-Benz. I think it was Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi. Some streamliner forms of the racers of like the Bernd Grossmeyer and Caracciolo series of the 30s and 40s. I'm going to bring those back out on Monday and on our stream and have you take a look at them, because I'd love to be able to take a family of shapes here and develop some really neat stuff in terms of streamliner and change pace, because it's a great format, because it's almost like doing a form study or a freewheel series where you really have a lot of, hey, hello, the happy little machines, happy little accidents. How are you? Very good. Cars that are can't believe I'm just seeing this stream. Thanks for pointing it out. Well, you're more than pleased to have you on board here, Belton. And really, it is an art form. There's no question about it. And I think that's one thing I've always stated too. I came out of CCS in Detroit, Michigan, went on the General Motors design staff for a majority of my career. And I think the thing that's really unique to me is I never lost sight of it being an art form. Yeah, it's an industrial design pursuit, but there's a lot of fine art in it, and we don't employ that. We use a lot of magic, as far as I'm concerned, and it really is unique to keep it in that activity. So great point, Belton. I really appreciate it. Cars are art. It's not a had a good friend of mine when I worked with John DeLorean at the GM design staff at the Chevrolet. We used to call them rolling sculptures, and that's what they are. It's a piece of sculpture that has wheels on it, and we treat it that way. And I think the great thing about drawing is that we see it in elevation, so to speak, or a couple of perspective pieces. But really, when you walk around it, the element of surprise often comes out, and it really becomes a really interesting thing, really interesting part of the process of being creative, is to really settle things down. And again, the whole reason for being here today is simply this, guys, and individuals who are tuning in, which I thank you for. Don't get caught up in trying to be perfect. Put a theme down. Put your emotion into that sketch. They should be alive. Have a character about them that has a personality. Have some really neat things that you want to own. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. I've said this many times in my streams. Mistakes are coming about because that's where the miracles live. Make mistakes. That's where the miracles begin to live. So let's see. Oh yeah, EOD operator. Let's see. Cars elicit an emotional response. They are an extension. Yeah, they are. You're absolutely right, operator. They are an extension of us. How we feel about how we see things will be portrayed on paper. So let's do this. I'm going to turn this thing. Let's start another sheet here. Do I have any more? Yeah, let's do this. We'll fill this little spot up here. Pardon me as I sharpen a stick. Yeah, I'm looking for more traditional stuff. So let's kind of fill in the blanks here. Let's kind of go back and look. This is yep, good. Okay, super. If you have any questions or concerns along the way, hey, Nemo, how are you, doctor? Good to see you. We're just doing some little emotional Streamliner studies here. Thought we'd go back in after Wednesday's stream with some of the Audi stuff, a little bit more formal marker, pencil rendering, and the like. Just to slow it down today and look for some really good, quick sketches that have an emotion about them, that are very literal in some cases, but in other cases very abstract. And looking for features. Looking for things that will kind of spark the next generation or another idea. So welcome aboard. Good to have you on board there, Captain. So let's do this. Come back in again. Put a little perspective to this guy. Let's got to roll this back. Let's bring this surface on through. Let's put a little bit of a snout in this guy. Notice, real scratchy. I'm looking at just shape and surface. Not going to define it. Don't want to define it. I just want to look at certain features. What am I seeing here? What do I want to really employ as I go down the line here? A little bit of perspective in this guy. Take that line and crispen it up a little bit. Really stealth-like. It breaks. Again, it comes in through here. Does the same thing. Breaks up. I mean, look how rapidly I'm moving through this thing. For the sole purposes of just laying down or looking for some sort of spark. Might be a little bit busy here and there, but I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about concerned about getting a sketch or an element down. Some of those really look like the 80s Batmobile. Matt's car porn. The 80s Batmobile. All right, very cool. So there's a page full of little, what I refer to as really quick little bursts of concept work and so forth, looking for the whole concept today of what does a Streamliner consist of. Stretch wheelbase, very low profile, lots of activity in some of the shapes and forms. Some of it's old romantic, some of it's not. Adam West would be proud to drive one of them. Yeah, I think he would too. So let's kind of start with a fresh sheet here and open this thing up a little more. And then oftentimes you come back to some of the more traditional approaches to looking at this stuff. We might open up with something like this. We come back in and say, okay, let's do this. Those two little eyebrows right there. Let's start with that. Let's take that same shape, extend it, bring it on over. Draw through it. Get that same brow. Let's get that in place. See where we're going there, guys? All of a sudden, we've got a 1930 streamliner, and just by 2 or 3 lines, and you kind of convey that whole process just to take that line through. Get that shoulder to work in there. Let's drop the hood surface in. A little bit of far side blister. Let's take this on through, and let's do this. And let's do this. Pardon me as I turn this a bit on the side. Nope, go the other way. And collapse it. Bring it back out again. And with 3 easy lines, look how effortless that was. I mean, just nothing to it, guys. Just a little bit of tail spots in this guy. Just take that cockpit through and then run it right underneath into the form. Man, there is nothing there. I mean, look at that sketch. There's nothing there, but it has, hopefully, it has the beginning of an emotion. It just really, I wish I could find the words to describe the emotion that you go through. When I see something in my mind's eye and I start putting it on paper, I can't fulfill it. I just go through the process of being very, it's almost, I relate to it. I mean, I become part of that paper, part of the surface. I know it's an odd thing to say, but I really become part of that whole process of not being separate from it, but I'm a part of it. So let's kind of carry on here. Let's put a little bit of scratchiness in this thing. We're doing the other sketches. There it is, right? Let's kind of run that in. A little bit of that bone line through. Let's kind of put this in place. Kind of tighten that wheel down, lower that just a bit more, take that form into place. There's a canopy. That's going to indicate with the glasses just enough information there, a little bit of a value change. That's what the canopy is, the cockpit, gold rivered. A little bit of intake in this thing. Again, looking at features. Taking that line through, putting a little bone line in, playing in there, just let that kind of come in, and let's get that little razor right there to kind of reinforce that shape. Damn, right around there, bam. Bam, right around us. And there it is, just up, back in again. A little bit of tone in this. Real loose, fluid sketches. Looking for streamliners, looking at themes. Let's put a little bit of line weight back in this, pardon my answer, okay? Look at the emotion in that line. I'm going to burn that thing right in there because that's what I want everybody to see. That certain bone line that takes me right through that shape. Really interesting. Let's see, Pixel. Did he answer you about the 2000 Supra? I said stepped out. Yeah, good. Thank you very much. That Supra is cool. Hopefully this is making sense for you guys. Let's kind of put that little tail through here. Let's kind of separate where that goes. There's my underbody right here. And last but not least, it's a couple little of those guys in place. Let's kind of take that little more shadow into this thing so it drops underneath that form. And that bone line to go through. Let's really accentuate. That's the feature I'm after right there. That almost that Corvette style blister. And let's do the same thing here. Let's kind of put this into place. There, 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 there. And again, let's finish this out here. A little bit of shadow in here. Ground it. And again back here, distance ground it. I mean, very abstract. I mean, look at how simple that sketch is. I mean, there's not a lot there, gang. Let's see, Captain Nemo, that guy needs a steering rudder. Yeah, he does. Well said. But again, the emphasis I'm trying to take on today is that when we draw, we get so caught up in trying to be so perfect all the time. And I think that's, I'm not being critical of that. I think that's part of the, it's a good aspect to have. But to me, the initial of laying down an idea should be a completely bursting into things that are unseen and that you don't see or you can't be, you couldn't predict. I think that's the part that really I think is unique to me. So when we go through these sketches and some of these elements of these streamliners, let's kind of get that back in space here. Let's do this. It's a little more tone in this thing. And there I am. That's another aspect of it right there. So let's go back and do a little bit more. Let's do some of this. Come back in. Let's do this. The wheels down. Take that back. Gonna come right back in through here and just roll that off. Break it through. Break it through. Take it over, bring it under, get that wheel in place. Just drawing through it very loosely. There I am there. Again, really, really quick. A little swallow's tail in there. Take that on in and call it a day. Again, really emotional, fast little theme study there. The idea is to get used to being really lucid, get used to being very free and open with this stuff. Makes a huge difference, guys. Pardon me as I sharpen the stick here. All right. Okay, let's move on here. Go the other way. Establish the form first, or the streamliner, and put some grounding to it. Again, another example of extremely long stretched machine. As I understand, that is the stage we're getting sidetracked as a method rather than an issue. Yeah, I think that's true. Good comment there, Captain Nemo. Getting distracted is a method rather than an issue. I think that's a method, quite frankly. You go through some strikes, for example, and putting sketches together. You know, oh, what did I do that for? But don't allow that to happen. Let that become part of the process of saying, boy, you know, that's really cool. I could use that. Give you a good example. Doing some Corvette work, we did a lot of things with a lot of flared fenders and blistered systems, and we made a mistake on the back of a paper plate, took it upstairs, it became the four-rotor Corvette. So that's what we're getting at, just that intuitive sense of, oh, this is kind of interesting. What are we doing with this? I have no idea, but it's going to be cool. Let's go back and do this. Let's go back and through this and fill up the page here as we go. Again, thank you for your patience, gang. This is fun. It just kind of loosens things up, and you don't get all caught up with a lot of different things in terms of, gee, I need to be perfect, but this shape isn't right, that's not right. It doesn't matter. I don't mean that to be critical. Please forgive me. It matters, but don't get so caught up in trying to be so unique with it that we lose sight of some of the things that we can be looking for when the mistakes come about. That's the key. So let's get the wheels back out again, this thing. ground line down, really able to help establish the scale. Canopy, turn it form the other way. Come underneath that with an under tray, and kick it, and bring it back into shape, and let it go at that. I'm not going to finish that sketch. I'll put a little more tone in it here, obviously, but let's do this. I kick it back. Real scratchy. Down the ground, and look how quick and dirty that thing is. But again, folks, hate to be redundant here, but what I'm looking for from the session today, what I'm intrigued by is what am I going to get out of these elements that I can use as a benchmark to develop a shape or form, and bring it into the modern generation. Maybe it'll become a Corvette study. I don't know. Maybe it'll become a Ferrari study. I'm not sure, but I'm not going to restrict myself by being so formal. I'm going to miss out on some of the really unique elements that come about from just being a freewheeling. And I don't mean freewheeling from the point of view that, well, anything goes. There's a method to the madness. And the more method you have, the greater the madness. I think that's the funny part about it. Reverse that a little bit and say, I'm going to go mad and then find a method. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it really becomes a great issue for me in putting some of the sketches together about being exploratory. Going into areas, I think one of the great things I've learned from people I've worked with over the past is that you're never going to be really, really dedicated until you discover things that are unknown to you. There's an old cliche, for example, that when we go into the drawing process, we will never become what we want to become until we move into areas we're very uncomfortable with. The more uncomfortable we become, the more it's familiar to us. Just really interesting in terms of the more it becomes uncomfortable, the more we're going to discover. And that's why we have to take chances. Let's see, what does Belton say here? Could make a sexy race car for Mercedes. Yeah, it can be kind of neat. Look, a big S-Class or a big Anglos or Mercedes. Not bad there, Belton. Good observation. Let me carry on here, folks. Let's do this. Let's come back into this thing and say, what if we did this? And count that back. There you go. A little theme study here. Could make a sexy race car. Oh, that's still there. Okay. Again, notice a little bit of old school, a little bit of thin needle here, a little bit of bulging out in the cockpit area. And let's just kind of wrap it up here. We're just going to go through some really quick little studies here. Let me sharpen this stick here. I really hope this has been helpful for you, gang. A lot of fun to just open things up and let the floodgates go and make mistakes and just see what we can come out of it here with just really interesting material. So for those of you who are still with me, thank you so much for joining forces here today. It's been terrific, gang. Lots of fun. Let's go back here and just kind of finish it up a little bit. Just paint in some surfaces here. I'm going to close up with this. I'm a little more organic. Maybe not in pure Streamliner format, but again, the element of just doing some cool things with some canopy structure. So it's going to get that overhead canopy there. Let's do that. Just a little bit of this. Into that. Let me stop there just for a second. Let's get this backside wheel in place. Open wheel. Oop. For my silencer, guys, I want to make sure we wrap this thing up with a nice flurry. And keep that whole process in mind about being extremely, extremely lucid. Don't worry about making mistakes. That's where the real great miracles become part of the whole process, just toning it in. I mean, look at the mess that sketch is, but hopefully it's got a bit of a presence for you. And so, I'd like to go back and analyze that. Some of these shapes, what are we going to do with these forms? And there it is. There we go, guys. Just a nice series of little thumbnail sketches. And we started with this and just opened up with that as a kind of an anthem on this whole Streamliner process. What are we looking for as far as just really interesting shapes, features, stretch wheelbase, low profile, forward canopy, rearward canopy, just looking at different variations on the theme and not being concerned about finishing things, looking at basic themes and elements and so forth, little bit of stretch here, a little bit long overhang, but that's okay. I mean, we're looking at today's exercise. It's just letting go of some of the inhibitions and looking for exploratory shapes and surfaces that we can pull into place when we're all said and done. So that's how we started. And let me do this. I always do this, and I forget to get into this. This is part of me here. Make sure I sign it, and I'm guilty. So that's where we started. There's phase one. Then we moved into another element here where we got more traditional with some of the traditional speed forms of the 30s and 40s and some of the GM stuff. You know, those are high wheel blisters, but you're putting the cockpit full rivered and just being very lucid. We started that sketch with 2 eyebrows. That was it. And then we built the whole sketch around that. Very interesting stuff. Then going into that little theme, that one, and then we wrapped up with these two, a little perspective, 2-point perspective studies on the base here. So I hope that's been a really interesting set of circumstances for you to pick from. And again, it has been for me. I've always been a huge component and always in favor of extremely exploratory sketch studies. I mean, if I'm not challenging myself, I don't want to be involved in it. And I don't mean that to be a braggadocious commentary at all. I just think it's really important to get really caught up with, okay, I've not been here before. I'm going to explore some things. I want to learn some things about what I'm beginning to see. We don't do enough of that, and I think that's part of the reason we kind of get fallen into a systematic trap of doing the same things over and over again. Do we do that? Yeah, I do that. I'm quite guilty of that quite some time. But still, at the same time, I really don't get caught up with trying to be forced into a box or use the same pattern every time I start to sketch. There's always a great approach to changing the tempo, changing the venue, changing materials, changing technique. For example, pencil to pen to marker, the watercolor. Eventually in the stream here, I'm going to get into some things here, maybe take some shape here and do a little drawing on some watercolor Stratford board first, and do a little bit of watercolor study as well as so you can see how it all begins to relate. And it comes down to one thing and one thing only. And I'm convinced of this with all my heart in closing here. I think industrial design is a combination of, yes, math and science. Yes, it's a very technical approach, but we cannot lose the fine art side. These sketches are more fine art related than they are design related because they're emotional. And I think that's one thing I really want to stress here in this stream today. Become emotional with what you work. You've been given a great gift. Let's work with that and not allow it to be trapped or allow it to be stymied in any way, shape, or form. Open up the door and really have some fun with this stuff. And become emotional. Get tuned into what your character and what your capabilities are. Let's see, Pixel, never rely on a formula if you're looking to try and innovate. Yeah, that's exactly right, Pixel. There is no formula. You are the formula. What's your personality? What drives you? What kind of things does that make you really kind of begin to become inspired about what you see? Let's see, Belton there, what you got? I'd mount the seat like the McLaren 720 is right in the middle. Yeah, that'd be cool. Right in the middle would be really neat. Center option, terrific. I hope you're enjoying this streamer today, Belton Black. I really thank you for joining us. A new guy on board here. We've been having a lot of fun with this stuff. I've been having a moment to go back to Twitch, some of my earlier streams. It might be of some help to you as well. And again, let's see. I have to do those things to break my habits on new projects. Yeah, do me both, Pixel. We're all in the same boat when it comes to that. So I think that's part of the whole process here, guys. What's really been unique, above all else, is to look at these sketches from the point of view. What am I learning about this craft? To me, it's infinite. You can't put a border on it. It just changes day to day. It's amazing how the whole process opens up. And when you go that route, I think that's one of the great things about discovery. The discovery to me is the real culmination of taking great risk. When you discover something, you're risking your personality, your approach, your whole approach to problem solving becomes a risk. But that's what makes it great, because you're discovering more about yourself. And then the more you discover about yourself, the greater the impact is going to be when others work with you. So again, thank you so much, gang, for today. I'm going to wrap it up here. You've been very kind to hang on here for the next few moments. And I just want to say this too. I really appreciate all of you coming in on Friday, for example, giving up an hour of your time to listen to this little boy crank out some sketches. And I'm going to make an appeal here. So I'm going to take it out of order. If you really tell your friends about what we're doing here, I'm going to make a difference in people's careers. I'm not going to be the sole influencer there, but if I can help people get better and stronger with their message, that's the mission for me in this streaming system on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. So please tell your friends. I mean, let's build an audience here that really makes an impact in the whole process of being creative. And I would really appreciate the referrals. And I've said to Pixel many times and some of the friends I deal with day to day, if I've done something right here, tell me. If I've done something wrong here, tell me. I want to get better. I want to be a real an asset to each one of you. So please do that. Pass the word along that I'm live on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'll have a lot of fun with this stuff. We change subject matter all the time, so it's kind of got a lot of fun. Sometimes it's mechanical, sometimes it's more fine art related, sometimes it's illustration and rendering work. But it just, again, the scope is infinite, and I want to keep it as fresh as I possibly can. To all of you, thank you. And if you have any concerns about maybe drawing systems, learning how to do certain things, I've got a beginner's program on my website. It's called drcontrast.com. Feel free to give it a visit and let me know what you think. It's a very easy subscription policy for a month and so forth. We're kind of tuning the website now, so we're making some changes to it, and we're going to add some things to it as well. So, and also, for what it's worth, we've had some conversations the last week or so with some people on board here about going into a process maybe on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe Monday I'll begin to move into a teaching day where we actually take a certain element in design, maybe form, a perspective, round surfaces, the geometric solids, light source, those kinds of things, and maybe make Monday a lesson day. We maybe take up an hour and just say, okay, this is what the lesson's going to be, and we'll kind of, if you think that could be an asset, please let me know. That would be really terrific for me to get some feedback from you about if that could be something we could look at. And I'd really love to do that. And last but not least, I really appreciate the efforts here. Again, my website, drcontrast.com. If you have any notes or things you want to send to me, for example, just a question. Your website is currently down saying you are updating it any day. We're going to try and wrap it up today, Captain Nemo. Hopefully, stay tuned. We've got a couple more. We're adding some new video things. We're getting some new features into it. So please, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. It's been down for about the last week or so. We've retooled the whole thing. We're kind of gathering some information, putting more video work in, adding some things to it. So it'll be of some interest to you. So stay tuned, Captain Nemo, and we should be good to go. But if not by the end of the day, for sure by the first of the week here. In fact, when I leave the stream today, I've got to talk to my IT guy, get some things lined up for you. So great question. Thank you for that. And again, always remember, gang, I always leave this my stream with this very, very vital, to me, very important departure and goodbye. It's not a matter of goodbye. We'll be back on Monday. And before I leave, thank you, Captain Nemo. Thank you, Pixel, Belton Black. So glad you could join us today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I had enjoyed you being on board with us to make this fun stream with content and lessons that you'll like and help. Yeah, that's right, Pixel. Thank you for that. So thanks for joining, everybody. And always remember to never forget my signature piece is Dare to be Great. Go get them. Dr. Contrast said go get them, and I mean that with all my heart. Thanks. Have a great weekend, gang. Thank you.